So, last time we saw the Doctor regenerate for the first time, so where do they go from here? How do we introduce a new Doctor when the world only knows the one? And more importantly, who do we want to write this story? We can't give it to someone who doesn't know the show, or else they'll ruin it before it began, and same with the director. So they gave it to one of the best writers they had at the time, and produced one of the most sought-after Doctor Who stories of all time, and one of the best directors in Doctor Who history. Sadly, it's all missing. Welcome back to Doctor Who Change, where we will take a look at the second Doctor's introduction in The Power of the Daleks. The Power of the Daleks was written by David Whittaker, directed by Christopher Barry, produced by Ennis Lloyd, and originally broadcast on Saturday from the 5th of November to the 10th of December, 1966. Sadly, 0 out of all of the 6 episodes exist in the BBC archive. Let's begin with episode 1. We open where the last story left off, with the Doctor's face glowing and changing into someone else. Ben says the Doctor seems to be fine. He thinks that it might not actually be the Doctor. Polly disagrees when the man sits up as the screeching starts. He moans and begs for it to stop, trying to concentrate on one thing at a time. He uses the TARDIS console to stand up, then says it's all over now. He then starts messing with the TARDIS to take off. They're still in the South Pole from the 10th planet. The Doctor's ring falls off this man's finger. His fingers are too small for the rather large ring. The man looks through a chest, observing his muscles are still a bit tight. Ben holds a mirror to his face, where we see the original Doctor's face, and then this guy's. He continues to ignore Ben and calls the Doctor a great collector, examining a dagger from the Crusade and a magnifying glass. Ben tries to prove that he is the Doctor by the ring, which doesn't fit. The man's argument is that a butterfly can't fit into his crystals after its change. He then searches for his diary, the Doctor's, after explaining that the TARDIS renewed him. So yes, this is the Doctor. He then finds a recorder and plays a little bit. And then he finds his 500-year diary, and when Polly asks what's going to happen to them, he decides to leave because they've landed and go for a stroll. Ben and Polly are still not convinced. Outside is a swamp where the Doctor looks around. He calls inside for Ben and Polly to come outside with him. He then hears a noise while examining some rocks. Someone calls out to him for help and is shot by someone after exclaiming that he's an examiner from Earth. The Doctor then loots the body when the murderer sneaks up behind him. He examines a bag, saying that the examiner was sent to Vulcan, this planet. Ben calls for the Doctor, scaring the to-be murderer. Polly breathes in some gas and starts choking when Ben calls for the Doctor, who they both fall unconscious. Two men find the Doctor, thinking that he's the examiner, and they wonder what he's doing here 2 years early. They introduce themselves to a sick Ben as Quinn and Bragan, thinking they're here to examine Lesterson's space capsule. With Lesterson, a woman, Janley, tells him on what they should do, and is disappointed that he's disinterested in all their stuff. He's interested in the capsule that was corroded after sitting for 200 years in a mercury swamp that covers the planet Vulcan. Janley thinks the examiner is here to stop the capsule from being opened. In the examiner's quarters, the Doctor is still playing his recorder while Ben and Polly assess the situation, and Ben says this is all dull. The Doctor ignores all of their questions when the Governor and Bragan enter and ask why they're here. The Doctor says that he's here to examine and he wants to start at once. Brandon explains about the capsule to the Doctor says he will examine later. They leave, and Ben thinks that they're taking this too far. Meanwhile, Quinn wants to see the Doctor but needs a pass and argues with Bragan with it and runs into Janley on his way to see the Doctor. Later, the Doctor does examine the capsule and a piece of polished metal that dropped off from it. Lesterson explains that he wants to open it using laders to jig the lock. It's made of the examiner's responsibility, which they're able to, and the Doctor, of course, allows the capsule to be opened. It opens, and the Doctor and Lesterson step inside. They see the entryway and just decide to leave it there for the night. The Doctor notices the alien metal and wishes everyone good night, with Ben and Polly following. The Governor thinks Lesterson sent for the examiner, which she didn't, and they will talk about this all tomorrow. Later that night, the Doctor sneaks out to the capsule, while Ben and Polly follow at a distance. They all go deeper and deeper inside the capsule to a hatch. The Doctor opens the hatch, and inside, he tells Ben and Polly to come inside and meet the Daleks. The capsule is a Dalek capsule with 3 dormant Daleks inside, except for one of them is missing. You can see where it is on the ground. It's supposed to be on the ground. Ben thinks that they're harmless because they're all dead. They're all inactive. The Doctor notices that there were 3 Daleks in here, but now there are only 2. While on the floor is a Dalek mutant. This leads into episode 2, where the doctor sends Ben out to get a flashlight, where he's watched by one of the colonists. When the doctor shines it onto an area where the mutant was, there's nothing. Ben and Polly realize that Lesterson might have opened the capsule, and they go outside. The doctor also thinks Lesterson might be supplying the Daleks with power. He tells Ben and Polly that that's all that's needed to wipe out the one colony. Just one of those 3 Daleks to be in operation. Reagan runs into Quinn in the doctor's room. Reagan tries to get Quinn to stay, but he fails. They call security to find the doctor, who they've noticed is missing. The doctor says he'll wait to take action because Lesterson won't listen, who actually enters at that moment. He wonders what they would have to do in here. He wonders what they're actually doing in here. When questioned about the Daleks, he denies taking away the 3rd. When the colonist, Resno, comes out from out of the shadows, he gets the doctor to go see the governor. He then asks if Lesterson is going to stop the experiments and is sent to get Janley. When he's gone, Lesterson wheels out the 3rd Dalek, and he says that he's going to bring it back to life. Reagan tells the doctor to be discreet in his investigations and will try to arrange a meeting with the governor before he leaves on a tour of the colony. Ben still questions if the doctor is the doctor. Reagan leaves them with fruit, which the doctor cuts to reveal that they were bugged. They decide to consider who would have done the murder of the examiner and who sent for him. Ben says that they should go back to the TARDIS because the Daleks pose no threat. The doctor, of course, says they can't. With Lesterson, he, Janley, and Resno work on the Dalek. Resno accuses Janley of being a rebel, which Lesterson has to keep quiet about because they don't want to get politics into this, and because they need to get the Dalek working before the doctor stops them for good. The doctor has trouble remembering things about the Daleks when Reagan comes in with news that the governor can't see them until the morning. The doctor tries to leave, but is told that he must wait until the next morning, and he wishes him good night. They tell Ben and Polly that he's going to Radio Earth and get their backing to stop these experiments, and sneaks out. With Lesterson, they are working on the Dalek, which starts moving its plunger and eye stalk. Lesterson wonders what the sucker is used for and doesn't understand the whole gun, because it looks kind of like an egg whisk. He thinks that there might be a mechanical brain inside when some of the power is lost. We then see the eye look at Resno, who looks up and frightens it. Lesterson says it couldn't watch them because it doesn't have any sort of intelligence. The doctor sneaks out to communications where he finds them sabotaged and the mechanic dead. He hears a noise and calls out. Reagan and Quinn switch on the light. Quinn has pliers, and the doctor informs them about the murder. Reagan and Quinn decayed because after the doctor found his button in the swamp earlier when he was attacked. With Lesterson, Resno tries to photograph and film the powered-up Dalek, which keeps looking at him. He tries filming it and is shot by it, the Dalek. He seems to only have been knocked out by the shockwave and is taken away as Lesterson goes for help and Janley turns the power back on. Back with the doctor, Polly is for defending Quinn, but Ben says that he has the motive and means of doing it. He's the deputy governor and could want the position when Reagan comes in to escort them to his trial. Lesterson removes the gun of the Dalek, and Janley says that Resno will be alright and is making a recovery, and the doctor must not know about what, and they decide to go to surprise them with the Dalek. Quinn is brought before the governor. He says that he can't explain how any of this could have happened. The governor questions the doctor about the Daleks when Lesterson bursts in and unveils the Dalek, voiced by Peter Hawkins. It focuses on the doctor, giving Ben a reason to believe that this is the doctor because the Daleks wouldn't have recognized this man otherwise. Lesterson explains that it responds to orders and demonstrates by having it turn around and move things. He thinks it will end all of their problems, but of course the doctor remarks, by ending the colony. It then starts chanting, "I am your servant," as the doctor pleads to have it destroyed, explaining the dangers. This leads into episode 3. So the governor gives Lesterson the go-ahead to continue experimenting with the Daleks, with the mindset of doubling their production in their minds. The doctor says he'll stop the Daleks at all costs and tries to plead with the governor that the Daleks must be destroyed. He tells him of the danger and that he will contact Earth once communications have been restored. Before he leaves, he orders the Dalek to immobilize itself, which it does, and he, Ben, and Polly end up leaving. When they're gone, it starts moving again. It gives the reason to Lesterson why it didn't completely obey the doctor's orders, because they were wrong. They went against the Dalek's prime directive of serving humanity. Lesterson said that this isn't a cause for concern, and has it follow him out of the office. Polly's still against the idea of Quinn having to kill the examiner, and Ben says the Daleks is more important for that for now. The doctor then congratulates him for using his brain for once. Quinn is told by Reagan that he has to be the one to that Reagan has to be the one to attack, and Quinn reveals that he sent for the examiner because of the rebels, and before he can speak more, he's taken away to prison. The governor tells thinking that he's to be deputy governor in Quinn's place as he leaves for this tour of the colony. The doctor smashes up a small control unit and examines its contents. He takes things from his bed and messes with its insides. He has a dilemma on what they can do with the Dalek problem. Polly and Ben try to get out of him what he's actually doing. Ben has the idea of kidnapping Lesserson, which is a terrible idea, and the doctor explains that this device he's working on could be the answer to all their problems. Outside, Quinn pleads and tries to get them to find the rebel base as the doctor, Ben, and Polly go past to Lesserson's lab. With Lesserson, he's asking the Dalek a number of questions about science and things. He's astounded with its responses and tells his theories about it to Janley. The doctor barges in, claiming to be interested, and has Lesserson just carry on. He tells Ben and Polly to go look around when Janley is called away. Lesserson carries on while the doctor screws with the power behind his back, causing the Dalek to start swerving. Lesserson stops him, and the Dalek points his gun socket at the doctor as he leaves. Janley meets with Bragan and discusses how they could take over, but Bragan says to wait for them to get rid of the governor. They're both rebels, and they plan to use the Dalek guns to take over, revealing that Resno, remember him, the guy near the beginning that got shot, was actually shot dead, not knocked out as previously believed. Ben and Polly are looking for the doctor and split up. Polly finds Janley, who tells her where the doctor is, so she goes to the communications, where she's chloroformed and taken prisoner. Janley has her man Valmar take her to a safe place, and she gives him the gun to work on a control device so the doctors don't go shooting willy-nilly. The doctor is back in his room playing his recorder. He and Ben realize Polly's missing. The doctor thinks that she just could be looking around. Ben directs him off to report it, while Lesserson talks to the Dalek about some people not trusting it. The Dalek uses some inaccurate machinery to manipulate Lesserson into going to the governor to get more power and materials that they need. When Lesserson leaves, it makes the power going into the Dalek capsule increase. The doctor takes a note off the notice board on their way to see Bragan. He sees Lesserson leaving his lab, so they go inside. When he tries to get into the capsule, he is stopped. Ben holds the Dalek down. Stopped by the Dalek. Ben holds it down. And the doctor checks where he sees two Daleks that are armed come out. The doctor and Ben run away because of the danger. The Dalek tells the other that Lesserson has gone to get them materials and power. The doctor tells Lesserson about the Daleks, which he says that he will turn off the power and disarm the Daleks before turning them back on again. The governor leaves and Bragan is put in charge. Ben informs him about Polly's disappearance. Bragan tells the doctor that they found a body in the mercury swamp, the real examiner, which he must have killed. Bragan's going to tell the governor that the doctor is a murderer. When he leaves, a piece of paper, a ransom note, is slipped under the door for Polly. The Dalek disarmed the other two and asked lessons about the power. Two Daleks come out of the machine and chant that they will get their power, being told that all will be going towards their plan. This leads into episode 4, where Lesserson then turns the power down to half so he can use it as a bargain to keep himself in control. So the Daleks say that they'll obey, he turns it back up. The two of them go back inside the capsule and Lesserson gets his computer blueprints for that machine. Valmar receives a call informing him and Bragan that everything is going fine. The doctor and Ben enter saying that they're returning a call. They demand to know what they're doing to find Polly. A Dalek comes in with a tea tray. It asks if Ben and the doctor need any, and then goes away. Ben suggests that they search for Polly themselves, and they go. Bragan reports nothing to the governor, although the communications are up again. The Dalek comes in to get Bragan's tea. Janley talks with a rebel to check their agenda, while the doctor and Ben notice that there's 3 Daleks running free in the hallway. But there was a Dalek in Bragan's office, and there were only 3 in the capsule. Where did the 4th one come from? They go to the notice board and go to Lesserson's office. Lesserson gives Janley a list of materials that the Daleks need. He has become suspicious about the Daleks and thinks that they should ask the doctor's advice. Janley stops by telling him of Resno not surviving and the Dalek's gunshot. She uses it as a blackmail against him, and the doctor and Ben enter. They show him the note, and the doctor asks if he's been building Daleks. He tells him about Lesserson about the 4th. The Daleks must be reproducing themselves somehow. Lesserson realizes that he is causing all this, so he falls over. Janley tells the guard that Ben and the doctor attacked Lesserson and they are taken away. She tells Lesserson that he's been overworking and sedates him to rest. She lets Valmar in to lay the new power cables that the Daleks requested. A Dalek comes out to oversee the cables being laid. The doctor is able to decode a message on the notice board of a rebel meeting that night, and they are going to sneak into. Later that night, they snuck into the room and are hiding when Janley, Valmar, and a Dalek enter. They have stolen a gun and attach it to the Dalek with a control device. They demonstrate firing it at a metal wall. They come up with the problem of not being able to control its fire on people. So Janley risks her life, and they are convinced that it wouldn't happen. They start to make sure. Talk about Polly and hear some noise from Ben, and Ben and the Doctor are captured. The Dalek is sent to get the guard. Bragan tells the Doctor that he's going to reveal that the Doctor is a fraud and has him taken away. The Doctor is locked into a cell next to Quinn. The Doctor tells Quinn that Bragan is the leader of the rebels and they must get word to the Governor. Quinn accuses him of not doing his job, and the Doctor explains who he, Ben, and Polly actually are. Lesterson wakes up as two Daleks conspire. Lesterson realizes that the Doctor was right, and he sneaks into the capsule where he sees 4 Daleks. He makes his way to an observation window where he sees 2 Daleks working at controls. They go into another room where there's a conveyor belt. On it are bottoms of Daleks. Dalek mutants are placed in the bottoms and tops are added. The Daleks gather in a chamber as more and more Daleks are completed. They began to chant that they are the new race of Daleks. This leads into episode 5. Lesterson rushes out of the capsule into his lab, where he shoves a cabinet in front of the door. Janley comes and asks what happened as he turns off the power. He explains that the Daleks have been reproducing themselves. He says he's going to melt down the Daleks into liquid metal, and doesn't care what Janley does. She leaves and tries calling the Doctor, and he tries calling the Doctor who's in prison. A Dalek moves the cabinet away and explains that they will soon have their own power. Lesterson then makes a run for it. He tries to find the Doctor as Janley and a rebel escort a bound Polly inside. Janley says that Polly is an enemy of the Daleks. Polly is told not to be afraid, and she says the Daleks are dangerous. The Dalek asks when the power cable will be laid. Explains that it will need it so they can function without restraint around the colony. In the prison, the Doctor wonders how the Daleks are going to get the static electricity that they need, as he tries to get a note to resonate from a glass of water to undo the locks. Lesterson bursts in hysterically and tells the Doctor of the Daleks reproducing and is taken away. The Doctor demands more water and gets it. He starts to resonate different notes and is nearly unlocking his door. Lesterson is brought before Bragan as he freaks out on a Dalek who says Lesterson ordered the Daleks to lay the new cable. He demands that the Daleks is gotten rid of and to get the Governor back because the Doctor was right. Janley enters and tries to calm him down, saying he's not well. They come to the conclusion that he is mad and seeing things. He demands to be listened to. Polly is being forced to help Velmar lay cables as a Dalek leaves. The Dalek watching them leaves. She's mad at the other rebel, Keble, for being sexist. Polly tries to explain that the Daleks will turn on them as foreign of how Ben is in their custody. She says that the Doctor is in the Examiner as a Dalek enters, and Velmar sends it to get a new junction box as it leaves. Polly explains the Daleks hate anything that isn't them. When the Dalek comes in to give them the new junction box. Outside, Dalek places more cable as the Governor enters, asking what they're for. A guard says that they're for the emergency power supply. The Doctor is able to open Quinn's door by playing his recorder, and Quinn and the Doctor are able to overpower the guards and make an escape. The Governor meets with Bragan about what's been happening here, and with the Examiner. Bragan tells him about how the Examiner is an imposter and maybe a murderer. They found a body in the swamps. He shows the Governor disrespect and tries to get him taken away. Bragan has officially revolted and taken over the colony. His exit is blocked, and Bragan pushes a button and offers him his seat to the Governor. He sits down as the Dalek enters. Bragan demands compliance, and they could probably come to a compromise, and reattaches the Dalek's gun to the Dalek once the Governor refuses. The Governor is exterminated, and the gun is removed again. The Dalek asks humans why human beings kill other human beings. In Lesterson's lab, the Doctor and Quinn hide as the Dalek's cable is laid completely, and Janley bursts in to tell them that the Governor is back. They leave, and Keble attacks the Doctor. The Doctor is able to knock him out as they rescue Polly. She tells him that Ben has also been captured when an armed Dalek comes out of the capsule, so they run for it. Another follows, and they try to leave, but they can't, so they blast their way through. 4 Daleks wait in the capsule until the humans fight amongst themselves, and then they will exterminate them all. The Doctor, Quinn, and Polly look over the Governor's body and wonder why he was killed. One of the people declare martial law and take the 3 away. The Daleks in the capsule receive orders from the Daleks to conquer and destroy, and about 20 Daleks move out. This leads into episode 6, where the long line of Daleks go out to the lab and take positions to exterminate all the humans. The Doctor, Quinn, and Polly run into an armed Dalek on the way to the prison, which says that this area is restricted and they must leave or be exterminated. Janley reports to Bragan that the battle is over, and Bragan says no, their men must also be killed, or else he will be overthrown. He tells her not to back down and kill everyone. He takes a gun out of his drawer, and once she agrees to help him, he puts it away before threatening her. The Doctor and Quinn attack the guard. Valmar brings Ben in to tell them to wait for the Doctor and Polly. Bragan receives reports of organizing rebels, and he sends out a message that the governor was murdered by the rebels, and that they will be dealt with. The Doctor, Polly, and Quinn wander into the room with Ben. Polly pleads to get back to the TARDIS. The Daleks start to fire on the citizens as the Doctor makes his way towards Bragan's office. In the lab, Valmar confronts Janley after arming more Daleks, which they're going to use as weapons against Bragan. They must trust the Daleks if they are to survive. But the Doctor, Ben, Kebbel, and Quinn and Polly try to get into Lesterson's lab, but Kebbel is killed. The Daleks slaughter many of the guards, and Janley and Valmar deem not useful and try to escape. The Doctor, Ben, and Polly meet with Lesterson, who's lost his mind. He says it's too late to stop, and the Daleks are the new dominant species. They overhear Daleks talk about switching onto their own power. Ben yells at Lesterson, who slips that there is a secret power cable laid by Valmar that they could disconnect. The Doctor goes to find him while Ben stays to look after Polly. The Daleks and the humans have gone into an all-out war with Janley and many others being killed. Valmar tells the Doctor and Quinn where the cable is, and they decide to use Bragan and his guards as a diversion. Bragan is getting no reply from his guards. We look over all of the dead bodies as the Daleks go through the corridors. Bragan asks the Daleks if they will immobilize their guns and work for him. Ben and Polly look around and hide in a closet with Lesterson. Quinn confronts Bragan and is told to let the Doctor stop the Daleks, so he calls his guard to face them. Ben and Polly meet with the Doctor and Valmar, and they sneak inside the capsule where the Doctor screws with the power. Two Daleks come in to dismantle the power cables because they've stored enough of it for their own use. They also notice the move cables, which Lesterson says he could tell who did it, but because he is their servant. He keeps them talking long enough so the Doctor can continue working. He gets the power system to explode, which makes the Daleks spin out of control and blow up, and all power down. Bragan knocks Quinn over, and Valmar shoots Bragan because he was a murderer. They plan to rebuild together. The Doctor wakes up Ben and Polly tell him what he did overpowering the Daleks, quite literally. Sadly, it was the destruction of the power supply, and Ben, and Polly make an escape before they are sent the bill. Outside the TARDIS, before they leave, Ben says they don't need to worry about the Daleks anymore, and they dematerialize. Let's move into the character review for Polly Wright. Polly Wright serves as a companion from the War Machine to the Faceless Ones, where she left on the same day and oddly enough, in a few cases where she left on the same day that she returned. She was a replacement Barbara for her time, and it was actually better than Barbara was. She could be sneaky and work her way into things, and was brilliantly portrayed by Anneke Wills. Although most of her stories are completely missing, I have to say that she's better than Ben as a companion, fully deserves 4 out of 5 stars. Final thoughts. David Whittaker's Power of the Daleks is a great example of characterization done well in Doctor Who. I can honestly say that all the supporting cast had clear motivation for the things that they did, and were written in a way, even with the Telsnap reconstruction, I could tell them apart, with the exception of Kebbel, who was just a stock rebel character. All of the motives work into the themes of the power seen in the story. The Governor is a leader who has the power, but doesn't effectively use it. Quinn is going to receive power, and could easily use it modestly. Bragan and Janley want power, and Bragan especially will do anything to get it. And Lesterson wants the power received from knowledge. Speaking of Lesterson, he's also subject to having the fatal flaw of hubris or excessive pride. He wants to know what the Daleks are, and he also just knows that he can bring them back to life through his greatness, ignoring all of the Doctor's warnings. Seeing him have his breakdown into madness in episodes 4 through 6 is great to listen to, because he definitely deserves it for allowing himself to be egged on by Janley. Bragan is also very interesting in a way that he'll do anything to get what he wants, and is almost Dalek-like in nature, making it even more justified when he is shot in episode 6. Now let's get to the Daleks, which has Peter Hawkins sealing the show with his portrayal of having to be the Daleks being servants to humans. During the course of the story, there are a few almost slip-ups of showing their true nature, and I'm almost positive that they weren't planned in the script, and they really heighten the enjoyment of the story. Of course, you can't have a villain without a hero, and this story had the task of introducing the first new Doctor. So how did it do? Patrick Troughton gave his first performance as the Doctor by playing it confused from regeneration, beginning it over by the middle of episode 1, where he becomes more quiet in planning, staying in the background. For most of the story, he watches, and when it becomes obvious that he isn't, especially when it becomes obvious that he isn't going to be able to change anything easily, Also, the way he portrays the confused Doctor is great. He even makes the audience unsure if he is the Doctor by referring to himself in the third person, forgetting events, and acting completely differently than William Hartnell ever did. Ben and Polly, but mostly Ben, question if the new Doctor is the Doctor through the majority of the story, and only start to really believe that he's the Doctor around episode 4. They're both validated in their concerns on who the strange little man is, and in episode 1 takes its time in the introduction of the new Doctor, not leaving the TARDIS until about the 10 minutes in, and it really helps. So all in all, I give Doctor Who, The Power of the Daleks, a 100% for the entire thing being perfection in the story, characters, cast, production, and direction, design, music, and anything else about it. It's a real shame that it's entirely missing, and if I could have 2 parts of the story back, I would have to be episodes 1 and 6. 1 for the TARDIS scenes, and 6 for its big battle. I honestly say that this story is essential for any collection, and you should pick up the CD release of the soundtrack with the linking narration by Anarchy Wills, released in 2003. I would also recommend the loose canon reconstruction from recons.com, but it seems that their website was taken down because they couldn't pay for hosting. So you can find a copy on the VHS because it helps the enjoyment. If not, go to the BBC website for the classic series where you can find all of the telesnaps in order, and you can just match those up when you're listening with the CD. Sadly, you'll miss out on some of the really good clips, but it's better than nothing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with the introduction of one of my favorite companions in The Highlanders.